Thank you, Dr. Natraj, for your introductory remarks. I again welcome Dr. Pawan Kumar Singh to our webinar. Sir, we have been conducting, in fact, during this COVID period, most of the educational bodies, institutes have engaged themselves in these webinars, trying to spread education through this media. So have we entered into this arena. And the topic today is very, very relevant as people sitting at home, nobody able to move. So जो आपाधापी जो दुनिया के आपाधापी है सर वो आज खत्म हो गई है. जिन लोगों के पास बिल्कुल टाइम नहीं था आज they are sitting with their family and just trying to self introspect that where they were running around and where now they have to go. So the priorities in life are changing in the COVID times. So it is the whole circle. I would like to quote here, and when we describe spirituality, there is a quote from Maharishi Aurobindo, which I would like to share with the audience as well, that spirit is the non-material, animating and immortal part of human beings. Spirit is the self-existence being with infinite power of consciousness and unconditional delight. All contacts with the spirit or self, the higher consciousness and divine are termed as spiritual. The attempt to know and live in the highest self, the divine, the all-embracing unity, and to raise life in all its parts to the divinest possible values. I think that is basically the purpose of spirituality. In fact, Dr. Singh is very, very learned in this field. I do not like to eat his time and would like to introduce Professor Singh. In fact, Professor Singh has more than 3.5 decades of experience in teaching. He has taught both at the state level, at the central level. He has taught in the state universities of Ujjain and Kanpur, and then in the Central University of IGNOU, and then he switched over to IIM Indore, and finally now he's heading the MDI Gurgaon. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Professor, the key areas of Professor Singh are OB and just a second, sir. His core areas are teaching are OB and HRM, Indian ethos, management, values, and ethics. So, sir, we would like, as we have discussed, that we will be initiating a dialogue, and through which we will be raising the issues which are pertaining to spirituality and how spirituality can enable us to travel inwards to find out more of ourselves and how to manage ourselves. So my first question to you is, so whenever we talk about spirituality, people say how spirituality and religion are different, because many occasions people say spiritual people are religious people. So I would like you to clarify this and to say and to how we define spirituality, sir.
Oh, so we have begun with the question. That's fine. I thank you very much to all of you. And first of all, I'll answer that question, but I'm very pleased to say that entire panel sitting here, at least I can see 4 persons, including myself, and excluding myself, all 3 are spiritual. Let me prove that. Dr. Nataraj Ray, the name itself, Nataraj, full of spirituality. Then Dr. Avinash Chandra Joshi ji, the director of ISTD, and Avinash, what is Avinashi, which is imperishable, is certainly spiritual. We have also with us Gurvinder Singh ji, And you know that Guru Nanak had said, because Guru Vinder gives me indication that we have reached to Punjab, and Guru Nanak Dev said that Jo tudhu bhave sai bhalikar, tu sada salamati nirankar. So presence of Nirankar is also there in the form of Gurvinder Singh Ji. And today you see, today is a very special day, and every day is a special day. For a spiritual person, every day is a special day. But today, some speciality have been also described in calendar. For example, the sixth avatara of Mahavishnu, that is Parashuram. We are celebrating Parashuram Jayanti today. We are also celebrating the brevity of Shivaji today, because today is Shivaji Jayanti. And today is auspicious day of beginning of Holy Ramadan. And Ramzan, for whole month, our brothers and sisters, especially from Muslim community, they do penance in search of spirituality. So all these phenomenon are occurring today. Today is a very spiritual day. And now coming back to the question, you see, there is possibility that a non-religious person can also attain spirituality. I'm saying attain spirituality because everyone is essentially spiritual. Non-religious person can also attain spirituality. Certainly, religious person can also attain spirituality. Pseudo-religious persons may not attain spirituality. Let me clarify what is religion, what is spirituality. Actually, spirituality is the essence, quintessential core of any religion. First of all, what is religion? Typically, we say that I belong to particular religion. For example, one may be Hindu or Muslim or Christian or Zoroastrian or Sikh or Jain or Buddha or following Ahura Mazda. But we have only taken very superfluous meaning of religion. Today in the world, there are more than, I think, 4,000 religions. There are about 4,300 religions in the world. But religion word itself is more deeper than how vox populi we have attained it, we have addressed it. Religion word comes from the basic root word religio. Re means again, and legio means connecting back to the root. You see, when we take this meaning of religion, connecting back to the root, then this deeper meaning of religion and the meaning of spirituality, they actually converge together. So religion in nutshell is a method, a path to move towards spirituality. Religion is a path, it is a method, and your method, my method may appear different. But these all outward differences are peripheral, superfluous. The essence of spirituality is same in all religion. Now let us come back to this, that once we have tried to understand religion in brief, what is spirituality? Spirituality is the quintessential core of self. That is one description. Means what is there within me which cannot be undone. For example, my name is Pawan Kumar Singh. My name could have been Vijay Kumar Sharma or anything. Name is just name. So I could have been existing with the same spirit without this name. I am a male. I could have been a female. I am wearing a cloth of a particular color now. I could have taken a different color today. These all are peripheral. My designation today is called as director. I could have been something else. I teach human resource management. I could have been a professor of chemistry, or I would not have been a professor. I would have been doing something different. So all my designations, all my introductions written on, let us say, visiting card, they could have been otherwise, and even they would have been otherwise, I would have existed with the same spirit. So spirit is, spirituality deals with the quintessential core of self, without which I cannot be. And second meaning of spirituality is that spirituality is dealing with higher level of consciousness and going beyond this lower self, and running towards something without knowing where we are going and what we are running for. So spirituality is the essential core. Dr. Joshi Saab, I hope in brief I could discuss according to my understanding.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for the brief introduction to spirituality and what is the difference between spirituality and religion. So, one thing, the opportunity given by this COVID-19 is very unique in the sense that we have never seen this kind of a situation in our lives. So, this time period has given us time to reflect ourselves, to think about ourselves, who am I and why I have come to this world, what is the meaning of life, what is the purpose of life. So, sir, these are some of the questions. Being spiritual, a person would definitely like to know who am I and why am I come here. So that's my second question, sir.
Fine, fine. So we take COVID-19 also as an opportunity. First of all, let me pray for all, for everybody's welfare, because COVID-19 may be opportunity for me, for you, for all of us sitting together today, about 250 persons. But COVID-19 is also a testing time. And many of our brothers and sisters in the world, they are suffering with this COVID-19. And this suffering is going deeper day by day as we find. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha mapnuyat. Let everyone be happy and let everyone be without any disease. So we must pray at least now for recovery of all those who are suffering with it. Now coming back to the question, we have been confined to house. We have been quarantined in one way. We have, or in one way, we have become house arrested. And then we complain that, oh, I'm not able to go out. And again, we are saying this is an opportunity. Certainly, this is an opportunity because of various reasons. I'll say the first reason is like this. We are forced quarantine now, but see the examples of various persons who got enlightened and who achieved the highest pinnacle of spirituality. Take any example. Say I take example of Tulsidas. Tulsidas lived for 125 years. He lifted his pen for writing when he was 72 years of age. What he was doing till 72 years. Basically, he was doing penance. He had got confined. He had interacted with many persons. He had satsanga, but he was certainly enjoying his self in aloneness. You see, many of us are living in house today, and some of us may suffer with loneliness, and some of us we are enjoying aloneness. That is difference between loneliness and aloneness. Aloneness is a matter of joy. Loneliness brings sadness. See, when I went to Bodh Gaya, as any person, I visited Mahabodhi temple where Gautam Buddha got enlightened. But I was knowing the history of Gautam Buddha's physical journey from Rajgir to Bodh Gaya. Then from Bodh Gaya, I went 14 kilometers towards Rajgir, where for 4 years in Dhungeshwari cave, Gautam Buddha spent 4.5 years, and there he had almost got converted as a skeleton because he was under deep practices of meditation, and that was a self-invited quarantine. Because when a person basically addresses towards self, makes inward journey, starts knowing his true self. So basically getting confined to house is not a bad thing. And in this moment, though it is forced, we should see that how we can make best use of this time. And let me add here before I may go to the next question, that a spiritual person is one who gives affirmative answer to circumstance. Suppose you and I have got stuck in this circumstance, and a spiritual person will say, yes, I accept this circumstance. Non-spiritual person would say, no, I don't accept this circumstance. So this is another, let us say, characteristics of a spiritual person. A spiritual person more says, yes, 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 to the circumstances of life, non-spiritual person says more no, no, no to circumstances of life. Sir.
Thank you, sir. So in fact, when we talk about spirituality, there are organizations today which are embracing spirituality, though not in India so much as in US. In fact, there are several companies in the United States like Southwest Airlines, Hewlett Packard, Men's Warehouse, Tom's Main, and in fact, they have realized that why they are in business and what moral and social responsibility they have towards the society. So they have embraced, and for example, this Southwest Airlines, it says its motto is to give the cheapest air services to the people in America. There are several other organizations also in US who are continuously striving for attaining spirituality somehow. In India, even though we say we hail India as a spiritual country, but even now our organizations have somehow failed to capture this. They say हम तो वैसे ही हैं spiritual, but there are spiritual practices. The spiritual practices, the meaning and purpose of a certain business. So why somehow our organizations have failed to catch this trend?
I would simply like to say, if we want to be more successful in outside world, we have to be more integrated within. There are two types of persons in this world: fragmented within and integrated within. Our struggle is that how we can move from fragmented self to integrated self. You see, I don't have any thread here, but suppose I keep rotating a thread tied on other side, the thread is a piece of stone and a circle can be created. Now, this movement of the thread and the piece of stone will be balanced when centrifugal force and centripetal forces, they are in balance. What are centrifugal forces? Centrifugal forces are our, let us say, human endeavors, efforts outside, our skills, our vision, our mission, our get going kind of tendencies. These are all centrifugal forces. These are all good indicators of dynamism in right direction. But to keep ourselves dynamic, we need to be still within. If centripetal force is not balancing the centrifugal force, the thread will get broken and the stone will not rotate. It will get actually moved into the tangential direction. That's why anyone who wants to succeed in this world, want to be victorious, want to achieve more and more, must find the calmness within. These two are not contradictory, they are two sides of the same coin.
Sir, when we are talking about spirituality, the question and the topic, when we talk about self-awareness, I have gone through some research paper also, and I have seen and found out that even people sitting at the top of organizations have been found to be very poor in self-awareness. So why it is so that the emphasis in the organizations today is more on IQ only and not on really finding out themselves and looking for meaning and purpose in their life and in their businesses. So how to motivate people to know more about them? So what is that, sir? We would definitely like the people audience here would like to know that how to start the journey, if at all they have not started even yet, because there are curtains of egos, there are self-belief, there are so many things which are inhibiting us from learning more about ourselves, a connect, because unless we are connected and we are connected to the spirit and Paramatma, Atma or Paramatma का जो link है, somehow it has been severed, and because of that we have blocked all the channels which can illuminate us, which can apprise us, and which can act as enabler in not only finding about ourselves, but that knowledge about self can enable us to know more about the outside world. So how do you react to this, sir?
Sir, this is very interesting observation. You see, your question indicates that everybody wants to be successful in this world. And we all are running towards or for success without knowing what is the meaning of success. That is misfortune of humanity. I would like to say, I'm not trying to oversimplify, but I want to simplify that your success depends on basically two factors. One is direction, and second is speed. Suppose from point A to point B, I want to reach, I must have right direction. And speed also should be optimum. If speed is too slow, there is no fun reaching there. And if speed is too fast, there is more wear and tear and more burnout, as you said. So direction is important and speed is also important. Basically, speed connects with your human skills or technical knowledge, whereas direction is basically decided by your values, why we want to achieve something, or what is our basic purpose, what our basic goal. Now, even for a profit making organization, if the basic purpose of organization is only profit making, every organization has to be profit making. Even non-profit making organization must generate some profit so that it can feed itself at least. So profit making organization, whether the goal is basically profit making or not, we must generate profit. But I'll just quote you from one sutra from Rig Veda, its meaning, wonderful meaning. It says, Rig Veda's one sutra says about how we should do business. And this says that a business person or a person who is into fruitful endeavor should generate profit in the same way as a butterfly sucks honey from flower without destroying the beauty of flower. Similarly, if we are running for profit, if we are running for outwardly or worldly or mundane success, we must be able to maintain the beauty around us, beauty in the form of managing self, beauty in the form of our relationship with others, beauty in the form of a balanced society, good family, and let us say joy everywhere. If my any action does not add to that, we are not actually going according to the old dictum of Rig Veda. And that's why we should know the meaning of success. We are running around, but we do not know direction. I would like to add, with your permission, when I was about
Sure, sir.
6 to 7 years old, a young child, there I was always getting mesmerized. Why people are running on the road, going so fast, not talking to anybody, running somewhere. I used to feel like a child. I should stop some person and should ask, "Hey, why you are running? Where you are going? What you are going to achieve?" That I mean to say, direction. We have to set direction. A spiritual person is not less achiever. He or she is more achiever than non-spiritual. But a spiritual person sets the direction right, knows the purpose, and that's why there are many books also. It emphasizes that among many questions framed, asked through why, when, how, where, who, intelligent person first addresses the why dimension of question. Why I am doing it, why we are meeting today, how we shall meet, technology is deciding, what we will discuss, that you are setting the agenda, how we shall, who will be the participants, we have decided, but why we are meeting, first we should address that. So we should be more intelligent, asking first why, and also emphasizing the direction. Sir.
So it means spirituality somehow enables a person to focus on the priorities in their life.
Yes.
अभी आप जो भागने की बात कर रहे हैं, everybody is running without really knowing where the उसकी मंजिल कहाँ है, ये नहीं पता है, लेकिन सब all of us are running and madly running. Today there is a speed breaker for all of us who were running endlessly. COVID has given us the opportunity to take a break, to think, rethink about ourselves, where were we going. So, sir, how spirituality can enable a person to focus, because there must be certain practices. We all understand that there is a time for us to think about ourselves, focus about the priorities and the meaning in life. But can you suggest us certain techniques of how we can focus better, how we can do self introspection? What are those techniques? Our viewers definitely would like to know that how to utilize, because लोग कह रहे हैं कि आपको समय दिया था हमने, but you have not utilized this time frame for the betterment of self and others.
Mm.
So how, sir, you tell us, you guide us that how we should make best use of this period which has been given us by this COVID.
That's fine, sir. You see, again, I will say that there are two types of persons: meditated and agitated. An agitated person in the process of meditation is also agitated. And a meditated person in the process of dynamic exercises in the world is meditated. That's why this is an opportunity where we should stand still and see 360-degree angle, that where I'm standing, where I have to go, what I need to do. And I would like here to say that, you see, out of four inner instruments, they are called internal instruments. In Sanskrit, they are called Antahkaran Chatushtay, means four inner instruments. These are Mana Buddhi Chitta Ahankara. Mana means mind, Buddhi means intellect, Chitta means psychic plate on which memory are imprinted, and Ahankara means actually an Aadhaar number, your identity. That is the right meaning of ego. Take the first instrument, Mana. About Man, a wonderful sentence comes from Upanishad. Mana eva manushyanang karanang bandha mokshayo. Man eva. Eva means only. He. Hindi में he. मन ही बंधन और मोक्ष का कारण है. Mind itself is the reason behind your bondage and your liberation. I would like to say that liberation word should be a full course in any management school. Liberation. How to do act with complete commitment. Of course, focusing also towards profit, but remaining liberated. मन ही मोक्ष और बंधन का कारण है. This we have to know that mind itself is the reason for bondage and it is the reason behind liberation. And here only one thing I would like to say here, and then one or two quick techniques I'll say, that how mind can be reason for your bondage and how mind itself can be reason for your liberation. It is to be understood. Mind, what is mind? Mind is an instrument. What is its work? Its work is to connect, to relate. And if mind dictates the terms to the self, the mind creates bondage. And if the self, the consciousness, dictates terms to the mind, that hey, you go here, don't go there, stop, you need not to move now, you need not to go into that direction, you need to go into this direction, then when I actually control and use my mind, I am liberated from mind. If mind uses me, actually I am in bondage. Our misfortune is that master servant relationship has gone topsy turvy. Servant also has got his or her due respect, but if servant starts dictating terms like master and master becomes slave of the servant, then I think we are writing a story full of misfortune, and that kind of story we are writing for ourselves. Now, few techniques. Let us say how to actually be dwelling in your purer self. The first is work with your body. Body stilling should be first practiced. You see, meditation word I hesitate bringing in any of my lecture unless it is demanded, because there is always a danger that one may feel that we are trying to romanticize the discussion by using the word meditation. But you see, when I still my body, my mind starts achieving a stillness. Like in a still patra, container, the water will remain still. You see, we make too much of our body movement. Of course, as a speaker, I can always make movement of my hands. That is a different thing. But you will find many persons, and you can identify their character by seeing their way, how they carry themselves. Always body is shaking here and there and here. And that's why body stilling will lead to mind stilling. And as the reflection of moon can be more clearly seen in a still water of a lake, and we cannot see the reflection when the water is disturbed, so we have to make our body and mind still. In that case, we achieve certain characteristics. And one characteristics described in Sanskrit is called uh, pratyutpannamati, that is spontaneity and trying to respond to a situation in a given moment then and there. That can only happen when we are still. So we should practice certain mind stilling practice, body stilling practice, 15 minutes to this exercise, and 23 hours and 45 minutes to different things. I think we can start with this, and this will go a long way helping us in making us more effective when we rub shoulders with others also. Dr. Joshi, your voice I'm missing.
Sir, you can mute right now.
All right.
Sorry. Okay. So we are getting questions in between also, and meanwhile, when we are discussing about spirituality, I'll take up a few questions in between, and I'll request all our audience, whatever questions, whatever doubts they have in mind, there is a Q&A box in the bottom of the screen. They can open that and they can post their questions in that, and we will be discussing all those during this discussion, and we really want to make it fruitful and meaningful. One of the questions is how your path of life of religion are related. I think it was one of the first part when we started with what is the difference between spirituality and religion, and basically they are talking about the how your path of life. So would you like to comment on that?
How your path of life?
How your path of life and religion are related.
Okay. You see, religious practices are important for life. It is pseudo intellectual practice to say that I don't believe in any religion. Well, non believers also can achieve, but my path and religion both can be intertwined, can be integrated. I would like to say various religions have various practices. For example, Sanatan Dharma as a religion gives freedom to practice any path. You can go to Jnana Marg or Dhyana Marg or Karma Yoga Marg, or you can go to uh, Buddhi Yoga. Gyan Marg is Buddhi Yoga, sorry, Gyan Marg, Karma Marg, Bhakti Marg, and Dhyana Marg. So freedom is there. There are certain religion which emphasizes only on one of the paths. For example, in Buddhism and Jainism, there is more about Dhyan Marg. You will find in Sikhism, Dhyan Marg has been least emphasized. It is Bhakti Marg. If you see Christianity, there is less discussion about Dhyan Marg or others, but more emphasis on Karma Marg. So religion is a very, very essential dimension of life, and especially for India. India's basic soul is religion. It is basically a spiritual country. It is said because of very, very liberal approach of Sanatan Dharma or any Dharma we follow. And I would like to say that, as I have said already, that spirituality is the quintessential core of any religion. And today, because it is first day of Ramadan, I would like to say one piece of understanding here. In Hadith, there are two books in Islam which are most important. One is, of course, Holy Quran, and second is Hadith. Holy Quran are the words of Allah which was descending on Jibril, and from Jibril it came to Prophet Muhammad, and from there it came to everyone. Whereas other book that is called Hadith, these are words of Prophet Muhammad, and they are more about what we should do, what we should not do. And today, one word I'm taking, and we are discussing, so we are intellectual persons, we can discuss openly. I would like to take a word here that is called jihad. And jihad has been described in Hadith. It is said there are 3 different levels of jihad. First level, second level, third level. Second level is more profound than the first, and third is more profound than the second. What is first level of jihad? First level of jihad is that allowing a right person to do right thing, and if somebody disturbs the right person, if you remove the person who is wrongdoing, then right person is allowed to continuously do the right thing. So if you have done this, if you have removed the wrongdoing person who was disturbing the right doing person, you have done a jihad, first degree jihad. Second level jihad is that in the assembly of king, who has also judiciary and legislative and executive, all powers invested in him, even in the full assembly, which also includes king, everybody has a view, but you have a different view. You can stand on your 2 feet and can say, my opinion is this. If you have this courage, you have done the second level of jihad. But the third level of jihad, this is the quintessential core of all the religions. Without this, no religion can stand. And third level of jihad is waging a war, declaring a war against internal enemies. There are 6 internal enemies described in Jainism, Buddhism, Sanatan Dharma, and Islam, in all religions. And these are Kama, Krodha, Lobh, Moha, Matsar, and Ahankar. In English, Kama means misplaced desire, Krodh means anger, Lobh means greed, Moh means infatuation, Matsar means jealousy, and Ahankar means misplaced ego. And when we declare a war against these 6 internal enemies, actually we have done the jihad. If every person on this earth understands the right meaning of jihad, I think this world will be more beautiful than what is today. So religion gives you path. So this is very unending kind of topic. And in Sanatan Dharma, if you see, Bhagavad Gita is there. There are 243 Upanishads available in the market. Then there are big history books like Mahabharata and Ramayana by Valmiki. And then there are many books by Adi Shankaracharya. Then there are Shad Darshana. So all these are there. So we should try to understand religion. It is very, very productive on the path of becoming spiritual. So religion can be integrated part of life.
Sir, from religion, now I would like to take you towards intelligence. That we all know about various types of intelligences, that our academic period, academic times, they start with IQ. And majority of us who have reached wherever we are, the majority, the main role in our development, in our career achievement has been done by the IQ. Now, gradually we move towards EQ when we realize that emotions play an equally important role in deciding success in career. And now comes the third dimension, that is the spiritual intelligence. And one of the questions I was going through, that people want to know what is the difference between emotional intelligence and spiritual intelligence. So I'll request you to please define and how and what is spiritual intelligence and how it is important for success in our lives.
That's fine. Sir, I would like to also quickly go to IQ also, IQ, EQ, and SQ.
Okay.
And I say it IQ, EQ, S1Q, and S2Q. IQ is intelligence quotient, EQ is emotional quotient, S1Q may be social quotient, and S2Q is spiritual quotient. You see, I would like to say, and there may be very young professionals also may be listening today. You see, IQ helps you to get the job, but EQ helps you to maintain the job and to excel in the job. Right. If I only take the job dimension, it is very unfortunate for us, especially persons of India, to wait for Daniel Goleman to emerge on the horizon, and in 1995 starting emphasizing emotional quotient. You see, India is a country where we had books on emotional intelligence at least 2000 years ago.
Right.
I'm just, I would like to quote here, I would like to name here Patanjali Yoga Sutra.
Hmm.
Only in 196 aphorism, this book says how to make a journey from a point where you are standing today to the ultimate salvation. Nirbij asampragyat samadhi. And samadhi also has different layers. There are 4 kinds of samadhi, but the highest level of samadhi can be attained only by following 196 lines given in Patanjali Yoga Sutra. And now we are saying through empirical evidences also that EQ is three times more important than IQ.
Thank you.
You might have you heard that any CEO was removed from the job because he was having less IQ? Very unusual. We do
Yeah.
not hear like this.
Mhm.
But a
We don't get-
CEO was politely asked to go for some reason. And what is that reason? That reason may be hidden in either lack of EQ or lack of S1Q, social quotient,
Yeah.
or lack of S2Q, that is spiritual quotient.
Yeah.
So this is a difference between IQ and EQ. You see, Howard Gardner, who has given 9 different types of intelligence, actually he wants to say nobody is born unintelligent. And if you have failed finding intelligence in someone, actually your intelligence should be questioned. Anyway, how EQ and SQ can be now seen together? Emotional quotient basically is, you see, emotion basically is described in Western literature in a very narrow sense. This says emotion is intense feeling, whereas the Indian wisdom says that emotion may be intense feeling or maybe a serene feeling also. It is connected at the level of psychology, the psyche, the mind, the instrument that is called mind out of 4 internal instruments. Whereas spirituality works at different level of consciousness, and a spiritual person interprets at a very different level. Take example from management literature itself. When Jim Collins talk about level 5 leadership, he said that level 5 leadership leaders, they have 2 qualities: a resolve and humility. And he found that language of those who are successful, when they were asked how you could achieve extraordinary success, the persons say with higher level of understanding that perhaps God chose me to be so successful, or perhaps I was lucky. And only arrogant person says, hey, see, I'm so successful because I could do, I'm better than many others. So this humility, humbleness, we say Vidya Dadati Vinayam. This applies for teachers like us, Vidya Dadati Vinayam. I would also like to say one thing here. Not only Vidya Dadati Vinayam applies to the field of teachers, it must apply to the fields of realm of managers. I would like to prove here very simply. You see, as you grow up in the hierarchy, you must evolve yourself. When somebody becomes from management trainee to managing director, there is one thing is proved, that the person has done a lot of horizontal journey. But whether the person has done vertical journey, whether a person who became managing director today has also become a better person than what he or she was at the level of management trainee. You see, going from management trainee to managing director, it is also a very arduous journey. I salute to this journey, no doubt. I'm not contradicting it, but this is not enough. Because if somebody says me that yesterday I was management trainee, today I have become managing director, I'll only say that yesterday you were MT, today you are MD, you have replaced T and you have added D only. This only talks that you have done a lot of horizontal journey. What about vertical journey? Vertical, that's why you see, Maslow is quoted very abundantly by managers and professors. Maslow, sir, we all know. If you say Maslow, okay, 5 different levels of hierarchy. But how many of us actually appreciate Maslow? Because Maslow had said that it is duty of those who are custodian of organizations to help each individual to make a journey from the lowest level of hierarchy of needs to highest level of hierarchy of needs. It is very surprising. It is giving a goosebump. When I read it first time, it was giving me a kind of romanch that Maslow is saying it is duty of the custodian of organization to help every individual to move from the lowest level of hierarchy, that is physiological need, to the highest level, that is need of self-actualization. And that's why you will find that those who are great achievers, they have been humble. And I would like to prove here that you see, at junior level, you have certain authority and certain responsibility. At senior level, you have higher order of authority and higher order of responsibility. But authority responsibility ratio depletes when you become senior. Let us say, when a chief minister becomes prime minister, authority increases by, let us say, 5 times, then responsibility does not increase only by 5 times. It increases by much more than 5 times. It means as you grow senior, there is less of authority per unit of responsibility for yourself. And that's why all persons who are becoming senior must remember that more and more senior we grow in the organization, less and less support we are getting only from positional power and designation. We have to generate our own power through personal power, and personal power may include, let us say, higher spiritual quotient or better knowledge or tendencies to help humanity, etc. I'll stop here because there are so many things to be discussed.
Yeah. So in just continuing to Maslow's need hierarchy pyramid, when we talk about self-actualization, so isn't it that the spirituality is one dimension which really enables a person to achieve self-actualization? And how a person who is moving towards from self-esteem to self-actualization has to have some sort of spiritual dimension in him so that he can smoothly move towards self-actualization.
That's right. That's right. Because we get hint from the literature of Maslow also that only in the life of 5% of persons in the world, self-actualization need knocks the door. Otherwise, most of us, we get satiated at the level of 4th level, that is
Yeah.
self-esteem.
Self-esteem.
Self-esteem basically is connected with self-respect, accepting yourself, doing better endeavor. But self-actualization, when it knocks the door, what is the sign that it is knocking the door? The sign is that the question arises, why I am around, why I have been here, why I have been born. And when this why dimension keeps knocking, it makes you disturbed. It means we are lucky. Only lucky persons get right disturbances in life, because that is an opportunity to go to the higher level of consciousness.
I've received a very interesting question from Anand Lokhande.
Mhm.
He is asking, after this pandemic subsides and normalcy is restored, do you think people will behave differently? I am pessimistic about that. I feel that people will start running behind worldly pleasure faster than they were before, thinking that before any other pandemic starts, they should satisfy their desires. How can spirituality hold them?
You see, Lokhande Saab, you have asked a very, very, very pertinent question.
But
There is a term called Smashan Vairagya, means a feeling of renunciation when we go to burning ghat. You see, death is a reality. We should not hesitate talking about death, because understanding of death makes us more lively. If we want to live a life full of a living full of life, we should also debate on death. You see, a Smashan Vairagya means when we go to burning ghat, we talk bigger things, spirituality. When we are coming back, we are talking about mundane and very low level politics also many times. So after the pandemic ends, it should soon end. That is our prayer. At least being realistic, I would say that only minority of persons, lesser number of persons, they will retain this understanding that as we had been searching for meaning of life during lockdown, we should also keep searching for life when we are running around. So I think the apprehension of Lokhande Saab is correct. Then Why it happens? I would like to say one thing. There are two types of characteristics called sadguna and durguna and vices. And nature of vice is like this. If you once invite any feeling of vices, for example calm or krodh, anger, or greed is capturing you, it is encircling you. When a negative thought is invited, it pressurizes you to get used. And when virtues are invited, it keeps standing by your side like a very obedient person, non attacking. And when virtue is invited by you, it only whispers in your ears and says that, hey, my dear, you invited me, please use me. Then you don't use for longer time, and then virtue slowly and slowly goes away from you. That's why you see, God is so kind that he has given so much of autonomy to us that if I want to be a drunkard and get fallen into a drain, God does not stop, because it does not come in the way of your autonomy. So sadguna, when it comes, it is non-attacking. Durguna, when it comes, it is attacking. It says to you like betal, hey, you have invited me, you have to use me, otherwise I will cut you into pieces. That's why these all sadgunas, we have to retain them. That's why in spirituality, spirituality or spiritual literature, it is said that abhyas is one pillar of spiritual practices. Continuous abhyas. Without abhyas, only one discourse, one discussion, once in a blue moon discussion will not help. That is the characteristics of sadguna. That's why we should try to retain sadguna. Sadgun आग्रह से मिलता है. You have to pursue it. दुर्गुण बिना आग्रह के भी आ जाता है, गर्दन पे सवार हो जाता है. That's why we have to do the आग्रह continuously. लोखंडे साहब.
गणेश होनवाद पूछ रहे हैं सर, कैन वी मेजर स्पिरिचुअलिटी? हाउ डू वी नो इफ समवन इज स्पिरिचुअल और नॉट?
What is the name of the gentleman raising question?
ये है गणेश होनवाद, HONWAD.
हाँ, गणेश साहब नमस्कार. You see, social scientists can enter there where sun cannot enter. कहते हैं ना, जहां न पहुंचे रवि वहां पहुंचे कवि. Where sun ray cannot enter, a poet's thought can enter. Similarly, the scientific pursuit of social scientist enters everywhere. Social scientists are trying to measure which cannot be so easily measured. For example, what is the length of this pen can be easily measured. But whether the pen is beautiful or not, how it can be measured? And social scientists will not hesitate measuring the beauty of pen. Of course, we know that beauty of pen cannot be so easily measured, or even if you measure, you cannot claim that my measurement is correct. So spirituality can be measured. I would like to give you one example. Whenever you want to find that whether a person has high spiritual quotient or low spiritual quotient, or person is spiritually evolved or less evolved, we can capture it by certain process. And in this step, the first process is philosophizing or trying to find the grand model, and then finding the major factors. What are those major factors which reflect spirituality? Then those factors, each factor out of those factors is divided among various sub factors, and each sub factor is basically captured by questionnaire, which is of course valid, has to be valid, and has to be reliable. And that's why you see your body weight and height can be easily measured, but whether you are introvert or extrovert, they have been measured. But anyone measuring your introvertness, saying that you are 70% introvert and 30% extrovert, can be a good indicator, but claim can be only closer to the truth, but you cannot claim that this is the truth. So in nutshell, I'd say that Ganesh Sahab, anything can be measured by social scientists. The first step is philosophizing, grand model, factor identification, sub-factor, item, and then question for each sub-factor, and all questions together is capturing that particular grand variable that is called spirituality.
So Mr. Parag Kumar has asked, Some examples of centripetal force in human context.
You see, centripetal force means the force that is bringing you closer to yourself. And there have been empirical evidences also. I saw once upon a time that one Indian Forest Service officer had taken 3 months leave from government and was doing data collection at a Vipassana center. And he was trying to understand the mental state of those persons who are going to attend 10 days Vipassana process. Before going to Vipassana and after the 10 or 11 days course is over. And you know, in Vipassana courses, every day you have to meditate for 12 hours almost, and for completely 11 days no talking with anyone, even not seeing a distant place. You have to only see 4 feet or 5 feet in front of you. You are completely slowly you are regaining your energy inside. In Bhagavad Gita also, Lord Krishna has given an example that as a tortoise brings back all 6 limbs, means 4 legs, neck, and the tail, all 6 inside its shell. Similarly, we should try to bring ourselves closer to ourselves. You see, our physical body is the most outer packaging of the self. And this is described in Upanishad, that outer sheath is basically your Annamaya Kosha, physical body. Then Pranamaya Kosha, your breathing body is inside Annamaya Kosha. Still further inside is Manomaya Kosha, your mind sheath. Still inside is Vijnanamaya Kosha, that is your intelligence sheath. And still inside is blissful sheath, that is called Anandamaya Kosha. And we have not tested the nectar. You see, we are just running after sukha and dukkha. And whatever is dukkha gives dukkha, and whatever sukha also becomes again the ultimate reason for dukkha only. So we end up with only dukkha. When we go inside, come closer to ourselves, sit down, sometimes silently, do certain practices, go to persons who know, be in companion with good books, because going to good books means going to the person who has written that book. It is also called satsanga, also called swadhyay. So these all satsanga, introspection, certain meditative processes, sitting silently, watching the sky, watching the birds flying, just sitting down, trying to listen whatever are the sounds happening in the environment around. These all bring closer to yourself. These are
Yeah,
some of the ways. Sir,
I have only one question.
sure, sir.
Yeah, the question is that in the corporate world, in the spirituality affect the employees' performance. Is a, if corporate world, if we endorse the spirituality in my organization, the performance of the employee will be go up or go down or stand still. What is advice for the spirituality in the corporate world?
Yes. You see, spirituality's importance cannot be denied. In corporate world, when we say spirituality, I'd like to just take a journey from 1980s to 1990s. In 1980, the human dimension of management taught in B schools was called personnel management. If you remember, in 1980s, diploma was personnel management. In 1990s or late 80s, it became human resource management. Moving from personnel to human resource is not only a lexical jugglery. It is not word gymnasium. This is basically movement towards spirituality. Sorry. You see, personnel means person on job. So personnel management means you are taking care of the person who is on the job. And if the person comes to the job at 9 o'clock, goes at 5 o'clock in the evening, during that period, I'm concerned with him or her. But human resource management is complete care of the person, how the person is operating himself or herself in complete cycle of 24 hours. Because the same person who goes out of your organization at 5 o'clock in the evening, same person will come in the at 9 o'clock in the morning next day. So HRM itself is a spiritual journey. Now, I would like to say, when we take care of a spiritual dimension of persons in organization, we are providing a well-being to the person. We are giving a complete care of the person. And we are also, as a byproduct of our spiritual orientation, create a pull force in the organization. You can manage a person by pushing, you can manage a person by pulling. If you push only through your authority, then the person's performance will be minimal. The person will be saving the job. But if you pull, the person is completely dedicated to the organization. So that's why you will find even many spiritual organizations, which are genuine spiritual organizations, you see the dedication of the persons. They become indefatigable. They don't fall to tiredness. Whereas myself, a person like me feels tired because I'm always keeping an eye that on a scheme that how much I am giving, how much I am taking. But you see how the spiritual organizations persons, they are so dedicated. And you see, we have to identify a cycle which is called virtuous cycle of self energy mechanism. And when we have that virtuous cycle, our action itself brings more and more energy. Actually, inaction dissipates you. We become tired because we are inactive, because we are not working in right direction. We become tireless when we are working for 14 hours continuously with a purpose, with a dedication for lok kalyan, for lok sangrah, for lok hita. By actually wishing well for others, you become more and more healthy. And by targeting at larger goal of organization, we become more productive.
Sir Vikram, we have now around 50 questions, so we will try to go a little faster. Some of
Sure.
the questions have already been answered during our dialogue, and it is Mr. Vivek Rathore from Delhi who's asking, is it rational to be spiritual?
It is rational to be spiritual.
Yeah, is it rational to be spiritual?
Okay. Just I'll describe in brief.
Yeah.
Let us take 3 words. Actually, in our dictionary in general, I'm not challenging anyone, but in general, we think there are 2 words in our basket: rational, irrational. But let us go to the 3rd word, and the word is trans-rational. Rational, irrational, trans-rational. Irrational meaning we know. What is rational? Rational person is intellectual. There is difference between intellectual and intelligent person also. Intellectual person is rational. You see, Western philosophy, I'm not trying to undermine anything, but Western philosophy has produced philosophers, and Indian philosophy has produced enlightened persons. Have you seen Gautam Buddha behaving abruptly? Maybe sometime because of certain discipline, he might chide someone. But in Western philosophy, take some examples. Take, for example, Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer, a German philosopher. When he read Bhagavad Gita, he took the Bhagavad Gita on his head and he started dancing because he was so much into ecstasy after reading that book. But Schopenhauer refused to see the dead body of his mother. When his mother died, he was reported and people asked that you please attend. And he said, no, I don't want to see. Only philosophizing, only intellectualizing will not do. So rational, irrational. 3rd word is trans-rational, going beyond ordinary level of rationality, which is called working at higher level of consciousness. So my friend, I would like to say that spirituality is certainly not irrational. Spirituality does not get satisfied dwelling only at the level of rationality. Spirituality takes you to the realm of trans-rationality. You are rational, but still you can use rationality as per your free will.
So the name is not there. Some Redmi is there, mobile number, and The question is, in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Sankhya Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Purushottam Yoga for spirituality, which yoga direction is right for our life? इन्होंने पूरा ही पढ़ दिया है सारा
You
कि
see, in Bhagavad Gita, the Sankhya Yoga is the second chapter, and Bhakti Yoga you said that is 12th chapter, and Purushottam Yoga that you said is 15th chapter. Now, Bhagavad Gita, first chapter is Vishad Yoga, the 18th chapter is Moksha Sannyas Yoga, the 14th chapter is Guntraya Vibhag Yoga. So, which is useful? You see, very simple to understand this. When I go to a big restaurant, I hope they should be opened so soon, but not abruptly. COVID should go away, then we should enjoy restaurant. Which food I should eat? And there's a long menu, and I can see the food which is more and more suitable to my body, because every physical body has a different level of, let us say, appreciation for different food. Bhagavad Gita is a complete menu. You have to first identify yourself कि आपकी गति कहाँ है, तरंग कहाँ उठती है. Whether you are basically a bhakti yoga oriented person, then 12th chapter is your chapter. Basically, when you are Gyan Yoga oriented person, second chapter is your is your real chapter. When you are Karma Yogi type of person, then third chapter, which is called Karma Yoga, or fourth chapter, which is called Karma Gyan Sannyas Yoga, or fifth chapter, which is Karma Sannyas Yoga, they are useful for you. When you are a Dhyani, when you are a meditator, then sixth chapter becomes, that is called Atma Sanyam Yoga, becomes your chapter. So don't ask which is suitable for me. You ask yourself, आपको क्या भोजन अच्छा लगता है? And answers are available there.
Sir, Pankaj Sharma is asking, meditation is not recommended in many other religions. If it's why others are not following, it has its own importance. Maybe they want to know why other religions are not following meditation.
You see, meditation directly or indirectly have been properly placed in all the religions which I know. See, you have always seen, when you have gone to Jinalaya, you have always seen 24 Tirthankars are meditating. So Jainism emphasizes meditation. Buddhism, when you go to any Buddha Vihar, you see Gautam Buddha meditating. When you see the sitting posture of Swami Vivekananda, he is meditating. But there are some other paths also where meditation has not been directly emphasized, but it is hidden there. For example, when you see compound, element is not visible, but compound cannot be created without element. Meditation is the element. For example, you have not seen a dancing picture of Mahavir or Gautam Buddha. Have you seen? No. But have you seen meditating picture of Meera? Meera is dancing. I have not at least seen meditating picture of Guru Nanak, because he says just chant and you will achieve the same. But when you chant, when you dance, when you work, that is also a meditative process. We cannot run away from meditation. कहते हैं ना, प्रत्यक्ष और प्रच्छन्न. Pratyaksh means directly recommended. Prachanna means hidden. Meditation is either directly visible in a particular religion, and if it is not, it is embedded there. Like in a garland, thread is not visible. But without thread, there cannot be garland. Without thread, you can only have heap of flowers, but no garland. But because you are not able to see thread in a garland, you can't deny its existence.
Divya Jain is asking, how can we practice mind stilling?
Well, Divya ji, have suitable time, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, suitable place. But suitable time is certainly not when you have just taken food. It has to be in the morning, in the evening, when already you have taken food about 4 hours back. Sit down. And there are 1008 techniques have been described in Vigyan Bhairav Tantra by Lord Shiva to Parvati ji. But you need not to go into those techniques because meditation is a non-technique. Just you sit down, close your eyes, and keep watching your breathing at the tip of nostril. Like this, sitting down means keep your backbone 90 degrees from earth, your shoulder both the sides giving equal weightage. So it is just looking like normal curve, and close your eyes. And after closing eyes, just keep watching your breathing, which is going out and coming in, going out and coming in, going out and coming in. But if Divyaji, if you have deeper faith in any form of God, let us say Ganesh ji, then just close your eyes and meditate on. Be aware. Meditation means awareness. Be aware of the feet, lotus feet of Lord Ganesha. That is also meditation. Here I would like to clarify, meditation is not concentration. That's why beginning meditators, they complain sometime. I go into the process because someone appearing to be knowledgeable told me, and I feel headache when I meditate. You will feel headache, especially beginners, when you meditate, when you try to concentrate. Don't concentrate, just be aware. And when you are aware, you are lighter. When you are concentrating, you are becoming heavier. Don't be heavier, because meditation must make you lighter. And when you are aware, sometimes awareness can go here and there, and you're non-aware. But once you realize that you are not aware, you bring back your awareness to the point which you had decided at the beginning. So just be aware. Please practice awareness. Don't do concentration.
So Praveen Saxena is asking, how can one practice spirituality at workplace?
This is a bigger question because
Yeah.
workplace meditation is open eye meditation. When you are rubbing shoulder with others, you are still in meditative mood. When you are undergoing unpleasant experiences in meetings, still you are meditated person. It is very difficult process. So I would like to say, Praveen ji, that well, first of all, we should practice either in group or alone our meditation, closed eyes meditation. This will prepare ourselves better to be meditative, remain meditative at workplace. And here I would like to say that workplace meditation is possible by two things. Number one, your meditation practices in your home at proper place for proper time, maybe 15 minutes. We are busy people. And second, understanding. For me, there is no other precious word in this world compared to understanding. UNDERSTANDING. अंडरस्टैंडिंग, समझ पैदा किए हुए बिना कार्यस्थल पर आप एकाग्र नहीं हो सकते. Understanding. For example, at workplace, there are so many entanglements, there are so many negative vibes. Someone, you are placing a good idea for organization, and some other person, for the sake of putting you down, is giving counter argument. And then as a dedicated person to organization, I may become furious. Always you talk negative. But if I'm actually, what I was talking about, centripetal force, you are content, you are concentrated, you are integrated within. In that process, you have understanding that any person has reason to place one's opinion. I must first listen. And even if the person's opinion is not applicable, I must give a good listening. We can cut short a person's discussion. If a person without homework is talking humbug, we can always say that please do homework. I have come prepared with homework, and it is expected that next time you come prepared with homework. So meditated person at workplace does not mean a goody-goody person. Person would be assertive and completely, I will say, pragmatic. But the person has also larger heart to accommodate many other things. Let us see, because it is a continuous process.
Rashmi Bhargava is asking, I am never in control of what happens around me, but I am always in control of what happens within me.
Rashmi Bhargava, you are talking about the right philosophy. You are
Yeah.
you are always in. Yes, sir.
Basically, she wants to know things. Definitely, whatever is happening around, not in our control.
Mhm.
The only thing is that you can control yourself, be in control. So that means Rashmi is a spiritual person and trying to regulate herself, not really getting excited in the meetings and all that. So I think that is one of the qualities of a spiritual person, I must say.
Yeah, but I would like to add one thing here.
Yeah.
That Rashmi ji, you said that you are in control of what is happening within you. Very good news. And you are not in control of what is happening outside you. A very good understanding. But don't forget that what is happening outside me, I cannot control that. With that acceptance, we regain energy. But why we get dissipated of energy? Because we think, why I am not able to control something is outside me. So I think Rashmi ji, you are on right direction, but always we have to keep aware of the fact that I cannot control many things. I have tried to collect various descriptions of wisdom, not from any quotation books or taking directly from scripture, but depending on my own understanding. So one of my understanding about wise person is that a wise person knows what are within his or her control and what are not within his or her control. If we know this, we are wise. Accept it.
Srinivas Rao is asking, what decides direction, knowledge, or emotion for success? I think we have answered this.
What decides? I will only take one thing here because
Yeah.
direction, emotion, all are coming together. But what decides? What have to be taken into consideration for deciding direction? Here, I would like to give 30 seconds or so. What decides direction? You see, every time short-term goal need not to be sacrificed for long-term goal. If these two goals are not incongruent, we need not to sacrifice short-term goals. But if short-term goals and long-term goals are coming crisscross and one has to be sacrificed,
Yeah.
then wise persons sacrifice those interests which are of lesser cause in favor of those which are of greater good. So direction means, I would also say, if it is able to give you the last laugh, then perhaps my direction is right. But not necessarily that every time we should sacrifice short-term goal. But once they are crisscross, we should sacrifice short-term goals for the sake of long-term goals.
Right. Anil Kaul has asked, everybody nowadays talks that spirituality and science is interrelated. Science in present form is relatively new. Spirituality flourished when science in present form was not there. All classic texts are ancient. How do you comprehend this antithesis, so to say? Anil Kaul.
You see, first of all, science is always rational and spirituality is never irrational. I will hesitate saying that spirituality is rational because already I have said that spirituality goes beyond rationality. It is trans-rational. But you see, as science grows, any spiritual person would celebrate science growing, because as the science grows, it starts moving more and more closer towards the supreme reality, what we call as spirituality. So there is no loggerhead between science and spirituality. Spirituality is science and also beyond science. For example, I have seen many literature. Dhyan yoga is science. Karma yoga is science because cause and effect relationship are clearly defined. But bhakti yoga is a typical path of spirituality which science cannot capture. The ecstasy of Ramakrishna Paramahansa or ecstasy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or ecstasy of Bama Khepa cannot be captured by science. So science gets sometimes mesmerized in front of tall personality of spirituality. But as science grows, it starts deciphering the more mysterious dimensions of spirituality. So let science and spirituality be in parallel.
Dr. Jibdesh Rath from Bhubaneswar has asked, what is the role of soul in body and mind stilling process?
You see, soul, there is great debate on soul, and I'll not go into those various scientific inquiry that how soul was found in a body and how a glass cabin which was put across a corpse got broken. No, not that, because these things, this discussion does not help. But here the soul means the essential self. And in Sarvasara Upanishad and in Taittiriya Upanishad, in Panchakosha, the Anandamaya Kosha, the innermost core of the self has been described as soul. And Bhagavad Gita says that in the deepest cave of your heart, there dwells a spirit that can be called as soul. So Shankaracharya has also said, I would only, because this discussion has to go in brief, out of two sentences, please take one sentence at more priority. First sentence is that I am a physical body and I have a soul. And second sentence is I am a soul and I have a physical body which helps me to operate in this world. And soul can be realized only through deeper meditative processes. And there is no soul, I can only say when I say that Shankaracharya is talking something useless. All persons you see, Shankaracharya or Adi Shankar or Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, they've all said that there is existence of soul. And I do not know that does not mean. And I think what is soul, how it is realized, for that you need certainly enlightened speaker, and that I'm not the right and fit person here, but soul is there. To say soul is not there, I have to say the most useless person on this earth, where Adi Shankaracharya or Swami Vivekananda or Ramakrishna Paramahansa or Raman Maharshi and all these. So I am a soul and I also possess, I have a body. This is the right perspective. Rather thinking that I am a body and I have also a soul.
Sir, Mr. Manohar Yali Sethi, our past president, has asked, mind is an instrument. If so, can we locate it? What is the difference between mind and brain?
Well, this is, we are entering into the spiritual realm. You see, brain is a physical part of body.
Yeah.
And we all have brains. And we may have different shapes and sizes of brain, because there have been research on intelligent persons and their size and shape of brain. Anyway, what is mind? Mind can be understood through example. If I'm sitting here and having a discussion and I'm fully involved here, my mind is engaged here. But it happens when we are on receiving end and as a receiver or a student in the class pretends to the faculty that my mind is here, but he or she is thinking somewhere else. Mind has jumped. Mind basically is an instrument through which you create linkage with outside, and in meditative process you also create linkage with inside. Mind has a use in meditation process also. So let me clarify it. Function of mind is to create linkage. Sitting here in Gurgaon now, my mind can go to Howrah station or can go to Chandigarh airport. This linkage is the function of mind. My brain is here, but my thought has gone there. So mind is an instrument which links. Intellect is an instrument which evaluates, bifurcates, and tries to find the desirable over undesirable. Chitta has a function. It is a psychic plate on which memory is imprinted, and we either become slave of our basic old conditioned mind or conditioned activity, or we get liberated of it. So mind and brain are two different things.
Manohar sir, we won't be able to answer your other questions because of the paucity of time. Now, I'm picking another question from Anita Chauhan from Kota.
Oh
What-
yes, I would like to say one thing. Because of Madam Anita Chauhan ji, I am here. Of course, I have found good friends here, Dr. Ray and Dr. Joshi and Gurvinder ji. Yes, Anita ji.
So Anita is asking, what is that prevents people from living to their full potential? Very relevant question.
A non-spiritual person would say, there are so many reasons outside me. A spiritual person would say, I am responsible. One of the characteristics of a spiritual person is that he or she takes responsibility in one's own domain, in one's own kitty. I am responsible for non-realization of my full potential. And I would like to say here that for the sake of telling a story as a preacher, I may say that Satyug, Treta, Dwapar, Kalyug, there were different periods. But I'd like to quote here from Upanishad, which says that Kalih Shayano Bhavati, Sanjihanastu Dwapara, Uttisthang Satreta Bhavati, Krite Sampadyate Charan, Charayveti, Charayveti. The meaning is Kalih Shayano Bhavati. When you are sleeping, there is Kalyug in your life. Kalih Shayano Bhavati. Sanjihanastu Dwapara. When you have sat down, you are no more sleeping, you have sat down on your couch, then Dwapar Yug has entered in your life. Uttishtang sa Treta Bhavati. When you stand up, you get up and stand up, then Treta Yug has entered your life. And Krite means Krityug. Krityug means Satyug. Satyug kab aa gaya जीवन में? Krite sampadhyate charan. When you started walking on your feet, and that's why Charayveti, keep walking so that you have unhindered Satyuga in your life. Why I am not able to explore my full potential? Because I am responsible. I have invited Kalyug to be around me, and Satyug possibility is there, which I am not using. So I am responsible for non-exploration of my full potential.
Mr. Ajay Mishra has asked, how does ethics be connected to spirituality and how to improve ethics as more and more corporate companies are running towards earning more profit, even using unethical means?
Fine, my dear friend, we are talking at two different levels in this question. Ethics basically deals with social norms of do's and don'ts. So if discussion on ethics is here, spirituality is much above. I will put my hand beyond this frame. So ethics is social norm. What was ethical, what was non-ethical yesterday in your country would suddenly become ethical. For example, at one point of time in one country, euthanasia may be unethical and illegal also. But at other level, when it has become at other point of time, when it has become not illegal, it may become ethical. So ethical is about social norms. Spirituality deals with self-evolution. How organization can do ethical practices? Very concrete answer we have to find. Any ethical practices declared in the organization in non-concrete form will be lesser followed. For example, if I say in my organization, be as much honest as possible, ethical practices will not be ensured there. But if I say in no circumstance in my organization, any person will be engaged in giving or receiving bribe, then there is more chance that organization will follow that ethical path. So first thing is that our ethical standard must be concrete in term. Second, it must be properly disseminated. Third, it should be collectively decided so that there is ownership. Fourth, we must have purpose of ethics, because ethics is not a crown on your cap. It is not icing on the cake. Ethics is basic ingredient which also helps you to survive in the organization. In 2000, in the year 2000, when new millennium entered, of course it entered on in 2001, there were various survey, and it was found that out of 50 Indian organizations, the survival index of that organization will be higher, was higher according to empirical evidence, which had set ethical practices at its core.
Dr.
Joshi Saab, your
Joshi sir,
voice.
your
Professor Devendra Benvat has asked, ethical and spiritual relationship in context of workplace. Your comments, please. I think you talked about ethical practices now, but ethical and spiritual relationship in context of
Ethical
workplace.
and relationship is actually ethical and spiritual. If one person is spiritual, the person will be very naturally will be disseminating ethical practices. But only by becoming ethical, I don't see that spirituality can be attained. But of course, it may be first step, but ethics cannot be said as first step towards spirituality.
Yeah.
Whereas spirituality can take care of ethics. And I think Professor Benvet, I know him for last 30 years. I'm happy that he's here.
Yeah. So Mr. Vijay Phate from Nagpur has asked, what is the significance of self-transcendence in achieving the purpose of your life?
This is a very difficult question, purely spiritual question.
Yeah.
I would say in the language of Upanishad says that if in this life you have not realized yourself, then taking birth has gone useless. I would like to say here, Upanishad, they do not give you incremental growth. They are transcendental. मैं ये कहूँगा कि उपनिषद पुचकारता नहीं है, ये बड़ा जोर से हमला करता है, ये तो कबीर की तरह डंडे भी मार देता है. That's why purpose तो यही है सर, उपनिषद के लैंग्वेज में, that if I have not realized myself in this life, I have only given labor pain to my mother. These are the words of Upanishad.
So Mr. Hitesh Chadha has asked an interesting question. You have talked about PM to HRM. Now, human capital is the new concept. Is this the outcome of spiritual approach or profit maximization? Talking about human capital.
Yes, human capital, the term which has come, basically the purpose is that today we want to maintain and build our strength in organization. And when on technology or on resources or on collaboration or benchmarking, when every organization is on the same platform, where is the differentiator? We are searching for differentiator. And again, we have come back that human factor is the differentiator. Since we want to retain people, we want to nurture people, we want to build competitive advantage, we are trying to build human capital. And more actually social sciences develop, they start talking in terms of more concrete terms, human capital, which can be more easily measured, that how much human capital we have, how much we have lost, how we will build. And that's why human capital, I would not say it is a journey from HRM to human capital is a spiritual journey, but like to say that this is a pragmatic journey. And again, pragmatism and spirituality, they are not at loggerhead, but it is not as such a spiritual journey. But personal management to human resource management is in one way, I will say it was a spiritual journey. And now we are moving from HRM to further HRM, human resource management to human response management, because saying resource as to human is again de-dignifying to human being.
Yeah.
Sir.
Sir, I'll be taking last two questions. Due to paucity of time, we have already shot by 9 minutes. Mr. Sautam Ray has asked why mostly we see good people to struggle, suffer, while wrong, bad people don't. Mostly they seem to escape consequences of their misdeeds. काफी लोगों को ये रहती है problem.
And there are answers at both the levels, non-spiritual answers and spiritual answer.
Yeah.
But here I would like to first give answer from a spiritual angle. You see, in Narad Parivrajak Upanishad, a rishi was praying to God, And one day he's praying and saying to the God, "Oh God, are you annoyed with me? For long, you have not given me any problem, any struggle. Life is continuously going on a smooth path. Are you annoyed with me?" It means, at our level, when we interpret, the meaning is that Rishi is saying, I am growing in age, but every year you are setting only nursery level question to me. Don't you want to put me a difficult level of questions so that I can grow better? That's why you see, from the angle of spiritual pursuit, the life is an opportunity. And certainly PhD questions will be more difficult than nursery level questions. And spiritual persons, they have declared difficult moments of life as their gift. Then there are circumstances, there are instances. I'm not just saying because I like to say something. There are references I can give you where, and when I was trying to know that persons who got evolved became great, what were common factors among various great persons? Then one of the common factors is that great persons, with the grace of God, you can say, got different levels of challenges. ये तो मानने के जैसा है. If gold does not go closer to fire, it cannot get purified. And if utensil is not rubbed, it cannot be cleaned. So spiritual persons do not worry.
Joshiji,
And from non-spiritual angle, one line answer is that, you see, persons who are in wrongdoing do not suffer. Sometimes we complain. You see, persons in wrongdoing, they are not operating at higher level of consciousness. The difference between Shubh and Ashubh, desirable and undesirable, had got blurred in their mind. They have become typically Machiavellian. They have declared that end justifies the means, whereas a spiritual person says means justifies the end. That's why a spiritual person is graceful when he is getting defeated, when he gets defeated. A non-spiritual person is still unhappy though he or she is surrounded by victories. That is the difference.
I'm the
Joshiji,
last, coming to the last
Joshiji,
question.
going to last question. I have one question because I'm so
Please,
tempted.
sir.
Yeah, so tempted.
Please, sir, please. I can't say no
Yeah.
to you.
But going to last question, I'm going one question.
Uh.
It's a very great session. Very great session. I'm enjoying. So, sir, I have one question. Then in the present crisis, what is your advice to the organization to reach their goal? So spirituality. So to reach their goal, this is a very uncommon situation. What is your advice to the organization to reach their goal through spirituality in the current scenario? This is my question, sir, to you.
Sir, this is a very important question because this COVID-19 was never imagined. And I'm only about in my mid 50s. But even those who are older than me have not seen such circumstances. I would like to here say there are two types of wisdom. One I call as sunlight wisdom and other as torchlight wisdom. Now, ordinary mind will say the torchlight wisdom is much more important than sunlight wisdom is more important than torchlight wisdom because torch is so small compared to sun. But in this difficult time, whenever time is difficult, and today is the most difficult time, whole world is suffering. And sometimes an individual faces difficult time in personal life. In difficult time, torchlight wisdom we should never forget. Because sunlight wisdom is all encompassing wisdom, general wisdom, which can be shared, can be debated. But when you are alone facing any difficulty or in this COVID-19 situation, organizations should plan in short phases. What I would do in next 1 week, what is my plan for next fortnight, what is my plan for next 1 month, keeping in mind what are the purpose of organization. These short duration plan should be made because as with torch we move 1 meter, further 1 meter is illumined, and I can make 50 miles journey by having 1 meter illumined on my path. I should not complain why my path up to 50 miles not visible. Let it not be visible. You need only 1 meter to be visible. So my humble, let us say, sharing with organization is that let us plan for short duration. And if I've managed my today, tomorrow I'll manage my tomorrow. Next week I'll manage the next week. But how I will take the next step now, that is important.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Sir, last question by Anita. Is it sufficient to understand spirituality as an operation of the self?
Is it?
Is it sufficient to understand spirituality
Mhm.
as an operation of the self?
Yes. You see, managing self, this is the topic of today. This is the beginning phase of managing or practicing spirituality. Only I have managed myself. That is not the end goal of spirituality. I have managed myself to be useful for others. You see, I have categorized gym goers in two categories. Category 1 and 2. Category 1 gym goer, they go to gym just for their own physical beauty and they keep seeing their face in the mirror. But second category of gym goers, they want to be healthy because when somebody needs this person, their ill health does not come in the way or does not become obstacle. I maintain my good health for the sake of others. This is different thing. So when we talk about spirituality, it goes beyond managing self. It helps managing interpersonal relationships. It helps managing small group interaction. It helps managing whole organization. It helps managing whole society. It helps managing the whole world. And that's why Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is our philosophy basically, that is the true replica of our spirituality, we can say, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And one understanding of spirituality is that your physical body, my physical body are different. I'm wearing this kind of costume you are wearing. Dr. Joshi is wearing a very romantic hat. I'm not having and I'm not wearing. So we differ. But at the most core level, we do not differ. In a circle, on a circumference, there are infinite points, but center is one. We are infinite people on this earth, about 750 crores. But spirituality says the core is one. So if I'm able to see myself in yourself, and I can see yourself as my extension, and myself as your extension, this ekatmanubhuti is the pinnacle of spirituality. सब में समा जाता है, एको ब्रह्म द्वितीयो नास्ति.
Thank you, sir, for a very elucid description of spirituality and managing self. It was indeed a very interactive session.
Sir.
We indeed are grateful to you for coming and enlightening all of us. And we will continue to have association with you in the times to come.
Thank you.
Thank all the participants. There were 250 participants at the beginning. Even now, 121 participants are there. I won't be able to name all of them, but I know my past presidents, my NC members, my OB members, all of them who have joined. I'm extremely thankful to them for making this program again success. Bye-bye. Good night.
Thank you. Take good care.